To India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 62. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, I am talking about my trip to New Orleans.
Yay!
Yay!
And as we have gotten in the habit of, because we have a podcast, I know almost nothing about your trip. So I'm very excited to hear.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I know. I did do like a daily post. Did you just try to kind of gloss over those?
I mean, I looked at your pictures, but they don't really go into much detail.
Yeah,
Instagram
that's true.
Doesn't leave a lot of room for detail there.
That's true, yeah. Which is nice. I've found that that's my favorite way to do social media posting about a trip, is to do it while I'm on the trip. Because if I wait till I get home, I just will never get around to it.
Yep.
But if I do it just in the hotel in the evening, and I love that Instagram has a limit of 10 photos because no one wants to see more than that. And
well, there are people who do.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
But the vast majority of people don't.
And so it's nice to kind of figure out, like, what is a 10-photo summary of my day? And on this trip, since it was a honeymoon and we were exhausted, that was plenty. And some days I didn't even use all 10 photos because it was just like, you know what? We did 2 things today, and I don't need 5 photos of each. So, so that worked out.
You say you're
pretty
exhausted. Is it tiring to get married?
So this is so funny because I was so convinced that people were just being overly dramatic about being tired after their weddings. Like, I really believed, like, also I really thought that they were just talking about being tired from the wedding. Like you and I were just having a conversation about Christmas, and somebody asked you what if you liked Christmas, and you were like, the Christmas season, yes, Christmas Day, not so much. And I think it's maybe like similar with weddings, is there's like a wedding season where it's like months of preparation and so many aspects. And then there's the wedding day itself. And I'm an event planner, and so I can handle a long day, and I can handle a busy event. And I also love a party. And so it was something where just like hearing that people were tired from the wedding, I was like, yeah, I think I'll be okay. Like, I go to weddings a fair amount because I like coordinate other people's weddings and stuff. I'm fine. And then it was like, oh, no, it's from the months of tiredness, not the day of tiredness. And so people, like, I got advice several times, and I should have listened, where people said, like, plan a chill honeymoon. And I mean, listeners, in case they haven't caught up, they can go back and listen to episode 59, where I talk about how originally we had a trip to Europe planned. Daryl wasn't able to get a passport. I've gotten asked so many stupid follow-up questions about that too, and I'm like, how long do you have to hear my story?
You mean people have asked you follow-up questions about that?
Not from the episode, but just from like, well, did he this and I'm like, I don't really want to get into details of it every time, but people are like, well, why, and so.
Well, then tell them to listen to the episode.
I really should. Yeah, maybe that'll get more listeners too. I know. I give a detailed description on that episode. If people want to know, I have already shared
all the parts. Yep.
So it was really cool because towards the end of the trip, Daryl asked me, he was like, well, do you regret it? And that was kind of an interesting way of asking, because it was like, well, we didn't really have a choice.
No. Yeah,
so
it's not like you decided
is
to
an
do
interesting
it.
word. However, it was something where I was like, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And really, like, I think the combination of we were in one hotel for 7 nights. And I don't really do that.
No, you don't.
Yeah, and so it was interesting even getting to the hotel and being like, oh, it's actually worth unpacking. It's never worth unpacking for me because I'm somewhere for like 2 days and then I move on. So why would I unpack? But we like fully unpacked our suitcases because we were living somewhere for 7 days.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the U.S. was nice just for the length of the flight and more importantly, I would say the jet lag. Both getting there and getting back, it's just a 2-hour time difference. And then
almost like doesn't count as jet lag.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's like daylight savings essentially. So it's not a big deal. And then also I think what was so cool was we were really happy to be there. We had a great time. Yeah. Also, New Orleans is not our top pick of places that we want to go to. And that was kind of great because
how was that great?
Because we didn't feel a lot of pressure to see everything. I mean, because we've talked about going to New Orleans almost since we started dating. We were like, let's go to New Orleans and eat all the food, and that was like our big thing is because we're foodies and we're like, let's go eat the food. And so that just made a lot of sense when we were last minute picking a trip in December. Weather-wise, it made sense. December is just a really good time to visit New Orleans because it's not their busy season, but it's just a really like mild temperatures. So it was like in the 50s and 60s the first half of the time, and then the 60s and 70s the second half that we were there.
Nice.
Yeah. So like just a jacket, but like we could just walk around. We walked around a lot.
Nice.
But really any of the attractions, it was kind of like, if we don't see anything, we're fine too. And so that was nice that it's like we have some places that are really high on our list. And I think when we're at those places, we're really going to want to see a lot. And we needed rest so much. Yeah. And so it was really nice. Like every morning we just woke up and we're like, what do you want to do today? And that was really cool. I kind of liked that style. So I had my lists all ready to go. So what I don't like is what do you want to do? Well, I don't know what is there to do. I don't like starting from that point. But I had a big old long list already. And so we could look at the list and say, like, which of these sounds good? And so we could... It was nice to have a starting point because I think when I think about a trip where nothing's planned, I think about it seems like a waste of time to be trying to figure things out. And there were certainly times in the hotel where we like had to spend 10, 15 minutes on our phones trying to figure some stuff out. Yeah. And so if that's really frustrating for someone, then I could see how they'd be like, if I plan, then I don't have to do that and I can just go. But since
and for you, I think that would have been frustrating if you were only there for 2 nights.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you would have felt like you had to maximize your time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but for 7 nights, it was just like, and both of us were sick, during parts of it. Not like huge sick, but just kind of like, I had a little cold. Daryl had a fever during part of it. And so,
bummer.
Yeah, but it was just something where it was kind of like, so we'd, go get some food and then go back to the hotel or go do one thing and then order in that night, or things like that. And I kind of loved it. And I do like being in a hotel. I think that's just, it's kind of fun. And we were staying right in the French Quarter, which is kind of like the area of town where a lot of the attractions are going to be, a lot of the restaurants are going to be. And it was right off of Canal Street, which is a pretty like main street that goes through the French Quarter and heads right towards the water. And so our hotel, we were on the 9th floor looking towards the water. So we could see all the ships going by. So, and it was a Best Western. So it was like not super fancy, but it was nice. And so it was, our hotel room was a really like fun place to be in where there was like brick and you could see the boats and there was just like a really nice view of the city and everything. And so that, and then also if we wanted to just like head out to get dinner or something, we could just walk because we were so close to everything. Nice. And they have really good public transportation in New Orleans. And we were close to all those bus lines and streetcar lines and everything. And so so that ended up being really nice. And so it was interesting thinking about like when you choose where you're going to stay on a trip, do you choose the cheaper place that's further away from the things or do you choose a place that's kind of right in the middle? And I think for this trip, because we weren't going to be out from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., like we kind of went in and out. I'm so
Yeah.
happy we were like a really close proximity to all those things. And we didn't rent a car. And so it was nice being near the public transportation
Right.
as well. So, yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple of follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Kind of formulating in my head. We'll see.
Yeah.
So one of the things you mentioned is staying in the same hotel for 7 nights, which is not normal for you.
Yeah.
Now that you've done that, do you think that you will be more likely to do a longer period of time in cities? Or do you think you will still, let's say, you know, when you and Daryl do end up doing your trip to Europe, whatever that ends up looking like, because
Yeah.
if the two of you never get to Europe, I will be shocked. You will get to Europe at some point.
Oh, we totally
right?
will. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you do that, are you still going to do the, 2 nights in a city? Or do you think you might look at doing a longer stay in fewer places?
I think after this trip, I would be more inclined to do a longer stay in fewer places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if that would mean like a day trip out somewhere. Because that was one thing. We didn't do any day trips on this trip, but I thought about it. I was like, what if we like hopped on a train and went somewhere else and everything? And that like was feasible. And that sounded nice. And then you wouldn't even have to plan that in advance even. You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
what if we went to Prague and then did a day trip to Dresden, or did like just one overnight there, but still like set up shop, you know, and I don't know, like kind of, I don't know, the idea of having a home base somewhere was nice. It was nice being in a city long enough that I really like familiarized myself with it and like got to know the layout and like walked past a restaurant and was like, I want to eat there at some point, and then like, but it wasn't like, do it now or you never will. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Right.
I think just there was so much less pressure than what I'm used to. I usually feel a lot of pressure when I'm on a trip, and I didn't. And so, yeah, I think that was, so I don't know if I would do 7, but I think like it would make me reevaluate. And also just, I married someone who that's his style. And
Right.
so he's really nice to me and he'll do a lot for me. I want travel to be fun for him as well. I don't want travel to be
Right.
fun for me and I drag him along. And so if I want our trips to be fun for him, then like I'm going to need to listen to that and, you know, like have more of that perspective. And then also because I go too hard, it's so good for me. And so
Yeah.
there's something to be said for like, oh yeah, when I listen to that voice of reason that says slow down, this is a vacation. Like this trip like felt like a vacation. I came home rested, and like that is
Nice.
not how I normally come home. So usually I am exhausted. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Are there any other ways that being forced to travel differently than you normally do may influence future travel plans for you?
Good question. I think that it is a good thing to think about like how much time I'd be spending in a hotel, because I usually don't pay a lot of attention to like what accommodations are like, because I'm just there to sleep. So I think
Right.
I would ask myself, what is the purpose of the trip? And if the purpose of the trip is rest, then I would take a closer look, not just as where the hotel is, but like, I mean, it is always good to look at if they have breakfast, but even like, what is the room like? Like, what amenities do they have? Just, I mean, like, if that's kind of going to be more like home, you know, for a little bit longer, then I think I would, you know, think about that a little more. And I think that's where, like, sometimes that might be doing an Airbnb, you know,
Right.
to kind of make it home more, have a kitchen. But
Yeah.
also, I mean, like, I kind of forgot how great housekeeping is. And so that was nice, like, having a made bed and fresh towels, you know, different things like that.
Yeah.
And because we ordered in for dinner several times. And
Like
that,
room service?
yeah. No, like, Grubhub, you know, and so just like,
Oh.
we just did delivery, which I've not done in a hotel before. I haven't ordered delivery. And so that was interesting, being like, oh, it's nice to be somewhere that's like super close to restaurants for like ordering takeout as well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then we like walked to a restaurant and got takeout a couple times too. So that was even interesting thinking about like what are the reasons behind why you would get a hotel in a different location or whatever. So trying to think of other aspects of that. We brought a couple different like handheld video games and books.
Oh,
so it
okay.
definitely influenced our packing because like I played Lego Harry Potter on the Nintendo Switch for a little while, a couple
Nice.
times, and read half a book, you know, and so that definitely changed my packing. Normally, I'd say that'd be a waste of space, you know.
Because all your time was spent being filled with going and seeing things as
Yeah.
opposed to just relaxing.
Yeah, and then we also went by a drugstore a couple times and like got a couple snacks for our room, or like I don't know if I did, but I thought about like getting a face mask one night. You know what I mean? If you just think about like rest and self-care in a hotel, then I think that'd be interesting. Like, what does packing look like if you're trying to rest and take care of yourself and slow down? And like, what are things that you like to do or like to have, you know, when you're trying to rest? And so, yeah, I think those were some aspects that it changed as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've never been to New Orleans,
Yay.
and you hadn't until a very short time ago. So what were the highlights for you?
Let's see. I mean, the
Other
food.
than the food
Oh,
itself.
man.
we can have a whole section just on the food.
Okay,
Cheryl.
good. Let's see. So the big things, I think I'll just list the big things that we did.
Okay.
Other than eating out. So we went to the aquarium and
I approve of that.
the zoo,
Okay.
and we went on a jazz dinner cruise.
Ooh.
And we went to walk around the Garden District.
Okay.
And we walked around the French Quarter a couple times since we were staying there. And I'm trying to think of other. I think those were the main, like. Oh, and we went to City Park. They have a really big park that's a little further northeast.
Okay.
And they do have like a big Christmas lights thing there at nighttime, but we just went during the
cool.
daytime. It's a really pretty park and it's massive. And we went mini golfing there, so that was fun.
Oh, fun.
That's something that my family used to do on a trip. Is we'd be like, "Where's the mini golf?" And just go do mini golf somewhere. Trying to think what else I'm missing. Yeah, those were like the main attractions that we did, and then we ate at a lot of restaurants.
Sure. So then, of those attractions, which one would you recommend the most if someone was going to New Orleans and maybe they didn't have 7 days, maybe they had 3 days or they had 5 days or whatever, but they're like, okay, what is the one thing that I have to make sure that I do other than eat? Again, we'll get to the food.
What do you have to do other than eat? I mean, the aquarium was really good.
Yeah, was it a good aquarium?
Yeah, it was. And the zoo was also good. I think it was like an average zoo. And so,
Zoos are Daryl's thing, right? He's
Yeah.
kind of a zoo connoisseur.
yeah, he totally is. And so,
Okay. And so
yeah.
he was not super impressed. It was fine, but it wasn't.
yeah, it wasn't
wow,
like,
it's amazing zoo.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it wasn't the best zoo ever, but it was a good zoo.
Yeah.
The aquarium we were pretty impressed by. I think, the highlight was they have like the massive tank with the giant windows with all these benches where you can see like the sharks and a sea turtle and big fish and everything. And we sat there
Nice.
for a while and just like watched everybody swim around. But also
Yeah.
that tank, you could view it from above. And when we
Oh.
viewed it from above, this nurse shark was swimming directly up. So it was swimming like at us. And I was like
Oh, cool.
super excited about it. And normally sharks just kind of scare me. And it was so funny though, because I was like, do I like sharks? Like this aquarium seriously made me wonder that. Also, it has penguins. So that's always a plus for me.
Yep.
And it has sea otters and river otters and a ray touch tank with right now
Ooh.
it had 6 baby rays in it too, and they were like flapping like crazy. and
Did
it
you
was
have to pay
adorable.
extra to touch the rays?
No, No.
Really?
Yeah, I just got to touch the
Oh,
rays.
wow.
Also, we were there on like a weekday in December, so like no one was there. So that was
That's
pretty
awesome.
great too. The day we went to the zoo, it was like field trip days, so there were a lot of kids there. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that aquarium, and then I think, I think you got to hear jazz at some point, just because it's like, you know. But it's like, so we did this like jazz dinner cruise, so obviously we had to pay for that. But like one of
Sure.
the restaurants we went to just had live jazz music at it, and there was live music you could hear all over the city, and so
Nice.
like there were a lot of places you could go to. The restaurant where we heard the jazz, it was just like, it actually reminded me of a restaurant in Europe where it was just like, there was a little bit that was indoors, but it was mainly outdoor seating, kind of just on a massive sidewalk. You know what I
Huh.
mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
you go to a restaurant in not every country in Europe, but like it feels like a very European thing to like, most of the seating is going to be outside, even if there's some sort of like
Yep.
overhang,
Awning or
or something.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they have like a little kitchen and like a couple chairs inside or something like that. And so that one, they just like had a band there as well that was playing.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
cool.
and then, I mean, the architecture is really, like, definitely has its own, they have their own identity in architecture. Just in a lot of ways, it seems like New Orleans has its own identity, which I think is probably just true of older U.S. cities a lot more than
Yeah.
newer U.S. cities. And so,
Yeah.
and then something that we booked and didn't do because we slept in is, but we booked it as a free walking tour, so it wasn't a big deal.
Oh, okay.
Is, the cemeteries are really unique. Do you know about the cemeteries there?
I don't.
Well, okay, do you know about the elevation of New Orleans?
It's like either at or below sea level.
It's below sea level. So if you think about how you would bury someone there and what would happen.
Oh, they'd be below the water table, which means they would get all soaked in water and then it would smell.
Yeah.
So they must be elevated.
So they have like
Cemeteries?
elevated crypts.
Oh, interesting.
They're all above ground. And so we did
now I
get
need
to
to Google
see
that.
we did get to see one, but there are certain ones where you can only go in if you have a tour guide. And fortunately there are free walking tours. And so we booked one of those and then just like totally overslept the next day, which we were fine with because I think we just needed the rest since we had been sick and everything. But
Yeah.
but that was something where I'm glad that we got to at least see it and another one. And so I think that's just really unique. Yeah, but really just seeing the buildings, I think, would be a big thing. Just like they're so beautiful and yeah, really good architecture there. And obviously, Ryan, knowing you, they have an open container law, so you can just walk around with a drink in your hand. So.
Oh, yes. Oh, that will just make me so happy.
You're like, finally.
About time. Oof. Yeah, that's that'll do it for me.
I know. Yep.
Sign me up.
I was so excited about that just because I think that sounds really fun. I don't get drunk. I just think that sounds really fun as like, it's legal. So like, why not walk around with
So
a
let's
drink?
just do it because
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah. And I never did. And I think a lot of it was like,
course.
and there were all these places in the French Quarter that even like had like drinks to go on their signs. So it was easy to find it. But then it just like, I usually got a drink when we were like at a meal and then I finished it by the time we finished eating. And so there was never
Yeah.
a moment where I was like, I don't know. It just never happened. So
Did you notice it a bunch in other people?
yeah, as you got to the more touristy sections, there were more people. And then like on Saturday, that happened a lot more because we arrived on a Tuesday night. So the first couple of days, there was like a lot less going on, a lot less people around and everything, which was nice. But when
Nice.
we were at the heart of the French Quarter on a Saturday, that was like, oh, there's a lot of people here now. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Cheryl.
Okay, Ryan.
So tell me about the food.
So I think what's fun about food in New Orleans is, again, I'm guessing this is just, well, maybe it's that it's an older city, but I think even some older cities in the U.S. are not like this. There is not one item that you're like, yeah, when you go to Boston, you have to have the lobster rolls. There's like 10 items. There's a ton of dishes that you're like, in New Orleans, you have to have this and this and this and this, and they all originate from this place. And that was so fun that like the list of foods that originate in that area is pretty long.
Okay,
And
so I think you probably need to give the list because as a non-foodie, I can think of one.
Tell me what you can think of.
Beignet.
Oh, beignets are so good. Oh, you would have loved the beignet. So I went to Cafe Du Monde, where they're from. That's like the
That
famous
actually
place.
is where they came from,
Yes.
or it's just like the one to go to?
That's where they're from. It's a really old one. Again, it reminded me of. It actually reminded me of that churros and chocolate place that I went to in Madrid, where short menu, and it's not about customer service. They're just like getting you through, and it's just kind of like you order your beignets, and you order some coffee, and then you go sit down. And there's not a lot else to it. But they know what they're doing and they're amazing. There's a crowd. And so Daryl had a really good idea of getting up really early one morning and walking over there. Yeah. They're also open 24/7.
Oh,
so
wow.
we were like, well, we can go whenever we want then. And so we went over there. We left at like 8 and walked over there, got there at like 8:15. It's in the French Quarter, more like it's right near the big cathedral and the Jackson Square Park and everything. So it's kind of like the heart of where
Very
a lot
central.
of things to see are. And so that was nice because there wasn't a line when we got there, and there were already people like sitting and eating. And then by the time we left, there was a pretty big line.
Okay.
And you order one order and you get 3 beignets. And I definitely saw a family nearby with 2 little kids who I don't think they knew that one order was 3 beignets because they each got their own order.
Oh,
and
boy.
And
how big are the
little
beignets?
Kids. I mean, it's like a donut, but like a circle shape with no hole in the middle.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I mean, I had 2.5 because Daryl didn't like them, and we shared an order.
Wait, he didn't like them?
No, they're doughy in the middle, which is like what I love about them.
So like it's not quite cooked.
It's on the soft side, and he doesn't like doughy. He likes things to be cooked, which makes sense. I get it that he'd want things like properly cooked and everything, and also I'm like, no, give me that doughiness.
So he doesn't do whole. Sorry, this is slightly off topic.
That's fine.
So does he do cookie dough then? Because we've talked about this several times on the podcast.
No cookie dough. Nope.
Well, that's unfortunate.
He likes cookies a lot. Or I like any dough and any batter. I like raw pancake batter even, or like undercooked pancakes. And he's like, I would rather have an overcooked pancake than an undercooked pancake.
Oh, no.
Isn't that funny?
Interesting. Okay. All right.
So it was funny because I was like, I've had beignets around here before, and I was so excited to get beignets from like Cafe Du Monde, and everyone was saying, go to Cafe Du Monde. And I kept hyping them up, and it was so funny because I explained them to him. And then he tried it, and he was, like, so disappointed. And I was like, I mean, I told you it was like a donut. And he's, like, not super into donuts either. And so, yeah, it was something where he was like, I thought there was more to it. And I was like, no, it's just a really good donut. And they are covered in powdered sugar, which I had heard.
Yeah.
And so those kids next to me were covered in powdered sugar as well.
Sure.
The coffee was not great. And so we ordered a coffee and kind of regretted it. And so, yeah, coffee was whatever. Actually, kind of, not very good. So beignets. But, okay, gumbo, or you've heard of gumbo. That's from there. You've heard of bread pudding.
I thought that was a British thing.
Now that's making me doubt if it's actually from there originally, but it's super popular there and famous there. You've heard of Bananas Foster.
Yeah.
That's from there.
Okay.
Have you heard of Po' Boys?
I've heard the term. Okay. By the way, English bread pudding it's definitely an English thing. Okay. Initially. Okay. But not that they can't also do it in
bread
New
pudding
Orleans.
is happening down there.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe not from there. You've heard
Po' boy, that's like a sandwich, right?
Yeah. Like the shrimp ones are like a famous one. So it's like fried shrimp inside of a yummy sandwich. Kind of like a sub sandwich.
Yeah.
You've heard of jambalaya?
Yep. Is that different than gumbo?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's from there. And then some other things that I don't know if they're from there or not, but I mean, they do a ton with seafood, which is my jam. So that's really fun. But like they have like, you can get frog legs or turtle soup or alligator or catfish, or different, like lots of things that are
Okay.
just super common down there. And so it's really common on menus down there. So that's fun.
And which of
Crawdads.
those did you get?
Almost everything.
Okay.
So like we had catfish several times. Catfish is really good. But like blackened catfish tacos one time, some different things like
Okay.
that. Fried okra I had fried gator as well, which I've never tried alligator before, but Daryl did. And he was like, yeah, it's like chicken. And it was
Okay.
like a slightly fishy chicken. So like fried
Okay.
alligator was almost like a mix between having fish and chips or chicken nuggets.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crawdads we had in a dish that no one told us about and was like one of our favorite things was etouffee, which is another thing that's from there, and it is almost like a jambalaya but without the rice in it, and it's like or like a really thick gravy with like onions and peppers in it and crawdads and the Cajun seasoning, and usually have it on rice, and that was so yummy. I had it
I
on
thought you
like
said it didn't have rice.
you serve it on rice though. Like it almost reminded me
okay.
of how people eat curry. It didn't taste anything like curry, but like curry is like the sauce and the meat and the vegetables, and then you serve
But
it
then
on
you
rice.
pour it over the rice. Got it.
It was like a Cajun version of that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, there's just for a city in the U.S., like that's a lot of dishes to be from there, and so it was really exciting just being like, there's a lot of things that we want to try here, and just like a lot of we just walk in a restaurant and be like, oh, this is amazing. And so that was so fun, just having really good food all over the place. Also, we had one of my favorite meals it did not have anything to do with New Orleans cooking, but there was this cheese shop near our hotel that Daryl found online, and they had lunch there, and all of their lunch dishes, of course, were like very cheese inspired and everything. And so I had this dish that was like an open-faced sandwich, and it was toasted, and then it had I'm forgetting the name, manchego. It had like manchego on it, and bacon and arugula and an egg, and it was just like this giant warm open-faced sandwich, and it was amazing. And so just so much good food, and so that was really fun. There's also a couple drinks that are from there. Just tried so many fun things. But we went to the birthplace of Bananas Foster, and that was really fun. I don't like bananas, so it was not for me. It was for Daryl. He's never had Bananas Foster, but he was like, I really want to try it. And so
Yeah. What did
I
he
found
think?
the restaurant that invented it. And he loved it. Yeah. And
Okay.
as the man is preparing it for you in front of your table, he's telling you the history of it. Which includes that the woman at this restaurant who invented it served it on ice cream because the owner of the restaurant said the ice cream had no place in fine dining. And so it was kind of like an FU to him, to just be like, well, here you are. And so, we had to you have to order it for 2 people as a minimum, which meant that Daryl got 2 servings of it as well. And then I
But
had
if he
a
loved
lava
it, then
cake
that's
there.
probably fine.
But yeah, so that place is called Brennan's, and apparently they have amazing brunch, which we did not go there for brunch, but it's a really fancy restaurant. And
okay.
And they said their dining area was really busy, but they were like, we have space in the lounge, and I'm so happy we went to the lounge because it was like way quieter, and we still had our own table, and we could order everything off the menu still. And then,
Nice.
but they cooked the Bananas Foster right in front of you, which is, of course, very fun when they set fire to it and you have big flames and everything. So,
Cool.
lots of good food. Yeah.
All right, Cheryl.
Yes.
So I do have a question related to all this food stuff. You have been recommending, almost as long as we've been doing this podcast, for people to do food tours.
Yes.
Did you do a food tour in New Orleans?
I did not.
Why not?
A couple reasons. It's pretty easy to find them on Google. So I was going to say an initial Google search. The company that I really like, Secret Food Tours, they don't offer one there. So actually, Beth, friend of the show, was going to get me a food tour through Secret Food Tours. And then since they didn't have them, she just gave me something else instead. And so, I was still thinking about it and Googled it and then thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just book one while we're there. And then we went on the Jazz Cruise, and they had a buffet, and they had, like, every single dish that I was like, oh, yeah, you got to try. Like, all these things I just listed. Like, they had all these things at the buffet. So we already got to try all the things. And then we were there for 7 days, so we got to try a lot of different things. And so I think it was something where, like, and also they are expensive, and since we had already spent all this extra money, like, switching over our trip, like, we were trying to not go crazy with, like, adding expenses onto it and everything.
Right.
And so it was something where I was like, it would have been great. I'm sure I would have loved it. And then also, I think because we had the time, it didn't feel like I didn't have the time to try all these different dishes, and so I better try it through a food tour. And so I almost think, I mean, I would still recommend it on any trip. However, I think if you have like 2 days in a city, then it'd be even better, because it'd be like, well, then you don't have enough meals to try all these different dishes that you really want to try in the city. And we did have enough meals to try all these different things. And so, yeah. And really, man, that buffet on the cruise was like, we're doing pretty good with that one. So yeah. Yeah.
Another food related question for you.
Yes.
Did at any point on the trip you get tired of eating out?
Yeah. And that's when we ordered in. Yeah, or like when we went to the cheese shop, it was like, let's just get a sandwich. Yeah, I definitely, our hotel had breakfast, and so that was nice, because most
days you did that?
Yeah, and even like some days we went and got it and then like brought it back up to our room, because like they were playing the news super loud in the little eating area. And so that was something where it was like, I don't know, we'll just go do our own thing for that.
Now, when you say your hotel had breakfast,
uh-huh,
there's a wide spectrum of what that can mean.
That is so true.
So what did it mean at your particular hotel?
It meant that it was a good one. They had scrambled eggs that were cooked, and they had 2 kinds of sausage that had been cooked. So there was like a hot dish there that you could get. Also, and then they had what, like the muffins, the pastries, the cereal, oatmeal packets, tea, coffee, blah, 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 yogurt. But then they had a guy who would cook you an omelet. And so that was very cool.
Oh, nice.
And they had some like toppings for the omelet too. And he had like 5 ingredients that he could put in it. And so I was there like the first morning, and I was scooping some eggs and stuff. And he said, hey, do you want an omelet? And I was like, do I? And so he was like, do you want this and this and this? And I was like, yep. That sounds good. And so that was great, because scrambled eggs that are mass produced are just never as good. Like I'll eat them because like I should have some protein, but they're kind of whatever. But an omelet that was cooked just for me, like that was pretty great. So I opted for the omelet whenever I could. Yeah. And then they kept the tea and coffee there. So that was nice, because we'd go like grab some tea bags or like grab some coffee on our way out or things like that. So,
and then was that included in the price of the room, or was that extra every morning?
Yep, that was all included.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was good to have. But yeah, we definitely I think being in the same city for that long did get tired of eating out. Or when it's like we took a nap and it's like, okay, so do we want to like dress up again and find a place to go, and so I think the eating out thing was, and that's where I would say like, well, then maybe an Airbnb would be nice to do some grocery shopping and be able to eat in, would be a nice option as well. But the ordering in was something I hadn't done before. That was pretty great. So we put on some Hallmark Christmas movies. And
Does Daryl enjoy those as much as you do?
He has more of a past of being around people who sincerely like them. And he sincerely likes to make fun of them, like me. And so I think he has a lot of freedom in being able to like say his commentary on them and everything.
Nice.
So.
Well, and if any of our listeners are unaware, and I'm guessing a lot of them are probably already aware, but if you are unaware, prior to this podcast, Cheryl had a previous podcast called Old Maids, and I believe for both December/Christmas seasons
Yes.
for both years.
Yeah.
You did reviews of Hallmark Christmas movies and other similar Christmas movies. Is
We
that
did
correct?
a bracket.
Yeah, you did.
We had to learn what a bracket was, and then we did a bracket. Yeah. So, oh, they're so fun to make fun of. Yeah, it's fun though because both he and I are pretty good at like predicting storylines too. You're good at that as well. So that's
No,
really
I'm
fun.
not.
Really? I thought you
No.
were.
Nope. I'm
But
so
you like movies.
I do like movies, but
Are
I
you
don't
surprised
often.
by movies a lot?
Yeah, I am. And actually,
That's
it surprises you that I get surprised.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can predict it, then I know that it is very predictable. Because, yeah, someone like you or my friend Kyle or a lot of people will be like, oh, yeah, it's going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just, for the most part, if it's a movie that I'm really enjoying, I'm not trying to figure out what's going to happen next. I'm much more in the moment.
So a movie I'm enjoying. I was gonna say I'm not overly trying to figure it out. I just notice a lot of those things, which
Sure.
is weird because I'm not observant in every area of life. But I think with things I'm watching, I am. A movie like a Hallmark movie where I'm enjoying it by picking it apart and making fun of it. I am trying to figure those things out, and they're worse than a procedural. You know, they like are a procedural essentially.
Yeah, it's very formulaic. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's really fun being like, okay, so that guy she bumped into, she's gonna marry him, and it's like every time
Right.
this is true, you know, and so
Right.
yeah, so fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, so depending on when you're listening to this episode will depend on whether or not you have yet, but I have already seen The Rise of Skywalker 3 times.
Boo! I mean, I'm happy for
I
you.
tried to get you to see it.
I know you tried very
in
hard.
multiple ways. I tried to get you
and
to see
I really
it.
appreciated it.
But there were several things in that I was able to figure out what was coming because I know Star Wars super well.
Okay.
And right, like I was hypersensitive to a lot of those details. But I didn't necessarily
That's
predict
different,
a lot
yeah.
of those things prior to seeing the movie. But while I was watching it, I was like, oh, that means this thing's going to happen, or there's going to be something with that, or I know what that reference means, or whatever. So there are definitely times that I can do that, but I wouldn't say that I normally do that.
I don't know if I knew that about you. That's very interesting.
Any other major highlights from your trip that
Okay,
aren't
so
food? Okay, or food related. Okay, maybe we're not done with food. Okay.
I covered the food, so I'm feeling good
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
I was very excited to ride in a streetcar because they have a functioning streetcar public transportation system, like the trolleys, like a cute trolley that runs on a track and is adorable.
Like San Francisco?
Yeah, they have
Okay.
those in New Orleans, but it's all flat, which is great too. And so I looked up what I did. Like we went over to the Garden District to look at the houses because that's where like a lot of the mansions and stuff are.
Oh, you
And
did
so
go to the Garden District to look at the gardens?
No, I'm good. Also, in the Garden District, there's a lot of good eating over there as well. So we had lunch over there, and that was really fun. And there are 5 running streetcar lines in New Orleans. And a lot of them started around where our hotel was. But the oldest line was the one that goes out to the Garden District. And it was like a couple blocks from where we were staying. And so it was like, cool, we'll take the streetcar out there. That'll be great. I read online about it, and it says that you either need exact change, which is $1.25, or you can download the app. And I was like, okay, let's do the app.
Yeah.
It's a really good app. So you can just buy however many tickets you want. And you can keep buying more later if you want. And then you just click on use tickets. And I was able to use it for both of us, which was nice. That like we didn't have to both download the app and set up an account and all this stuff. I just said like use 2 tickets. And then you just click when you're actually boarding, and then it like alerts the driver that you're using your tickets.
Oh, it's not even like a tap with your phone sort of a thing?
There was a scanner there, but I didn't even have to use that. I just would click on use it, and he'd be like, okay, great, next. And
Cool.
so I was all excited to ride on the trolleys, and we could see some of them out of our window. And so I was like, yay, trolleys. And so we're at the stop waiting for the trolley, and a bus comes up. And I was like, well, that's not for us because that's a bus and we're waiting for a trolley. But it was like, had the right destination on it. And then I asked the bus driver, because the end of that line goes to the zoo. So like, is this going to the Garden District? And he was the zoo, and he was like, yep. And then I learned that that trolley line and a couple of the other lines were temporarily down. And so they were using buses instead. And so we rode the bus out there, and then we rode it out again when we went to the zoo. And super helpful bus drivers every single time.
Awesome.
Like, really, really easy system, and really able to get everywhere we wanted to go. And also, the parking there sucked, and there were super narrow streets. So I would say do not rent a car. So we Ubered to and from the airport, and then other than that, just did public transit. So, yeah.
There isn't good public transit to and from the airport?
It's farther away. I think it would have been a couple transfers. And and so it was something we were like, like initially getting to town, let's just get someone to get us straight to our hotel. And then our flight leaving was a 6 a.m. flight. And so we're like, let's just, do that. Other than that, though, I mean, pretty cheap because we were there walking or doing public transit. And so that was nice.
Yeah.
So then I thought, okay, we didn't get to go on the trolley. I will go on a trolley on this trip, though. And I saw the red trolleys, which are the ones that go on Canal Street, which goes like away. You can go away from the water, and it goes all the way up to City Park. And so I thought, well, we want to go to the park, so we'll ride the trolleys up there. And so, and the reason they were down is because there was a collapse at the Hard Rock Hotel about a month ago, because of
collapse of what?
Like 6 floors collapsed
at
the hotel because of shoddy workmanship.
Oh, no.
Yep. Yeah. And like one article was talking about how they had undocumented workers, but it was like, I think there's a bigger thing than, like, it sounds like there were several issues with the construction. So there was a collapse about a month ago. And so there's a whole section of the street that's closed off, which affects the streetcars because they run on a line on the street. So,
right, because the streetcars aren't buses. They have tracks that they have to follow. So if part of it's interrupted, they can't run at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then we're going to go up to City Park. And so we go over to our stop for that. And then a bus comes again. And it was like, and so I was like, does this go to the streetcar? She was like, yeah, I'll drive you to where it starts. And so what happened is then the bus drove us further up Canal Street to where past the Hard Rock Hotel, and then they dropped us off and we could get on the streetcar, and we didn't get charged twice, and that was also nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And the streetcar, it was just adorable. And it was so funny because Daryl was just kind of like, Cheryl, it's a bus still. And I was like, yes, but we're on a streetcar. They're just so cute. But also it was way smoother of a ride because it was on a track. Like buses can be pretty bumpy, and there's pretty old streets there. And so there were some like bumpier bus rides that we had. But then, man, it was so smooth. And so, yeah, but it just goes right up to the bottom of the park. And so,
cool.
So that was really nice. But the app was good. You could even check on the status of when the next bus was coming. And I mean, just, it's a good app. So I would recommend that. And it was funny because we debated if we should rent a car or not, and we chose not to. And then once we were there and seeing the other drivers and seeing how parking went, we were like, oh my gosh. And parking was so expensive there, just like it is in Seattle. And so we were really happy that we didn't rent a car. So I would say skip the car rental.
Take the cute trolley.
Take the cute trolley. Hopefully the Hard Rock Hotel will be fine by the time people go there. And then they will be able to take the cute trolley all the way down Canal Street. So, yeah. There were a lot of Christmas stuff going on. We didn't really do any of them, but there were a couple different like Christmas celebrations and everything. But also the city was just decked out. It was so fun seeing palm trees with lights on them. I enjoyed that a lot. It was also fun being like in a tank top in December. So that was really good as well. But it was not sweltering. So
nice.
Yeah, good trip.
So I have a question for you, Cheryl.
Oh, I forgot about this.
Based on the name of our podcast, Take Me With You.
Yes.
If you could take me with you for one part of your trip, what would it be and why?
Okay. It's a toss up between the aquarium or the beignets. Okay, I would take you to the aquarium. I would feed you beignets. Can I say that? Does that work?
You can say that, sure. Because of everything you've described, those are the two things that'd be top on my list.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's definitely, that would be my plan for you. Yeah.
nice.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I mean, I'm still sad that you didn't have the original plan, but
Yeah.
it still sounds like it worked out really well and was what you and Daryl really needed for your honeymoon, even if
Yes.
it wasn't what you originally had planned. So,
Yeah. We're so thankful it all worked out as it did, and
yeah,
it was a great trip. Yeah, we're really satisfied with it. So, yeah.
that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have plans to try and make it to Europe at some point in 2020? Or is it just some point in the future right now?
It's at some point in the future.
Okay.
I think when we go through the whole passport process with Daryl again, I don't want to have a trip even on my mind.
Yeah.
Because I don't really want to have a timeline with it, and I don't want to be disappointed. I just want it to be like, oh, we just need to get him a passport at some point. And then after we have that one in hand, then we could start looking at our calendar. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's ends
wise.
up happening, then maybe that's a 1-year anniversary. We do the trip that we didn't get to do, or maybe that's a 2nd or 3rd year anniversary trip. I mean, it's just, I think it's not necessarily going to be 2020. That would be great, but it's not a plan right now. So yeah. Also, after a wedding and a trip, we need to take it easy on the spending for a while.
Yep.
So,
I get that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to the Wish You Were Here's. During this segment, and actually today, you and I are going to do the same Wish You Were Here.
Yes, we are.
I believe. And so we're going to highlight a travel attraction, kind of like a little postcard snapshot of one cool thing that you can do. And just kind of, hey, wish you were here. This thing's cool. So, Cheryl, what are we going to talk about today?
So today we are going to talk about one that we have not only both been to, but we actually visited together a number of years ago.
We did. Yeah.
The Tacoma Glass Museum. Hence the title. It is in Tacoma, and it is a glass museum, so it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yep.
Tacoma is a city that is south of Seattle. It's maybe an hour drive. Depending
on traffic. Yeah,
Yep.
it really does.
It's where 10 Things I Hate About You, where the school is that they shoot at. So if you've seen the end of that movie and they pan out, it is it's smaller than Seattle, and that's kind of fun because it's I'd say a little more walkable and easier to get around. But they have a fun little glass museum there.
Yeah.
So we got to see glass blowing there, and I'd say that's definitely the highlight of this museum.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Watching, glass get blown is pretty cool. For sure.
Yeah, and it's not a giant museum. It's not super big.
No,
And
it
so
isn't.
I think we were both kind of surprised. I thought it seemed like we thought there were going to be more exhibits, and then we were like, oh, okay. But I mean, it was really cool. I would say my favorite exhibits are actually the free ones that are outside. Those are the super impressive ones. So it's right near I-5, the big freeway, and there are a couple bridges that go over it.
Yep.
And if you walk on those bridges, there's a section where it is just essentially like a museum where you're looking at a big display of a ton of glass pieces with glass in the back, I believe, too, so you can see all the light going through them. And
that's what I'm remembering anyway.
And then there's another part. Is it the same bridge? I think it's the same bridge.
I think it's the same one.
Above you is a ton of glass pieces. And so you're walking underneath. It feels like going to an aquarium where you walk under the tunnel thing with all the fish in it, but it's glass. And it's a bunch of colorful blown glass pieces that are all above you in this glass display case. And that's just in public, which is amazing.
Yeah.
That's got to be bulletproof, right? I mean, how do you like?
I mean, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. Well, and I think the other piece too, to make sure that we mention, is I believe in both of those displays, the majority, if not all of the glass is Dave Chihuly glass.
Mm-hmm. She's
Because
a very
he's
famous glass artist. He's from Seattle.
Yep, he's from Seattle. He has a very distinct style of blown glass.
Mm-hmm. It
And
looks
so,
like underwater stuff, kind of.
yeah, very
So-
colorful, very smooth, fluid. Looks
Yeah.
oftentimes like it's in motion.
Yeah. Yeah, really fun shapes.
Yeah.
Such good colors that he does. And so, yeah, so, and then there's also a fountain really close to the museum with a couple glass pieces in it. And then I believe their exhibits inside are rotating exhibits.
That's what I'm remembering. It was a number of years ago that we were there
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it was a
But
while
yeah.
ago. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a fun place. I would say it's kind of a fun thing to do not in Seattle as well, where it's not going to be quite as busy. Parking may not be as expensive. I mean, you know, it's a fun little
Yeah.
trip to do outside of Seattle. And for people who live in the area, it's a really fun day trip to go down there and check it out. Yeah, I would suggest checking out the glass blowing schedule if they have one posted on their website. I'm not sure what it is, and like we said, it's been a number of years since we've been there, and
Yeah.
since that really is the highlight, I think you gotta go. But you can just go sit in the stands for a while and watch them blow glass, and so that's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you probably would want to sit there for a while. I mean, that's my own personal bias because I find it really interesting to watch. But there's so many different stages of glass
Yeah.
blowing. It's not something that they just do real quick. And I think, at least when we were there, I think there was really only one or maybe two artists that were working, and they have their assistants. And so there's a crew that's all working together, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like a big, huge group of a whole lot of people doing a lot of blowing of glass. And so you would really need, if you wanted to see different parts of the process, you'd really kind of need to sit and watch for a while.
Yes, exactly.
Which I think
would
is
say
fun.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I took glass blowing in high school, and I think the most impressive thing I made was a small bowl, and that was like my final. You start with
Yeah.
making a paperweight, things like that, and it is hard. And so I've
Yeah.
seen it in Italy, and I've seen it at this museum, and they're making big things that are so impressive. And so it's so fun. I mean, I think it'd be fun regardless of if you've tried it before. But
Yeah, I never have.
yeah, it's really neat. It's really neat to watch. So it's kind of mesmerizing as well. Just like seeing something that is a solid in the state of like honey, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wish you were here. I think that's going to do it for this week's episode, unless you have anything else, Cheryl.
Go to New Orleans and eat food. That's what I have to say. Also, book a relaxing honeymoon.
Solid advice. Solid advice. And since, Cheryl, you're a normal part of this podcast, I'm going to assume you'll share some pictures that we can put on
Yes.
our Instagram.
Oh, for
And if you want to see some of those, I'm going to guess most of the pictures are going to involve food. And so if you'd like to see some of those pictures, you can follow us at Timwy Podcast. That's at TMWY Podcast. And we are on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. And right now, actually today is the last chance to ever do this.
Today
So,
being which day?
Today is Monday, January 6th. This episode comes out in the morning, and in the evening of January 6th, we are going to be recording an episode where we are going to help you, Ryan, plan your first trip as an adult to Disneyland. Your first trip in years to Disneyland.
Many, many years.
And so we're going to be recording with a Disneyland lover. However, we want our listeners' input on this. And so,
Yes, please, 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 please.
So what
I'm
do
definitely
what do you
overwhelmed.
want some help with? Yeah.
Let's see. A few other things I would love advice about is what do I need to do differently as an adult? Like what's different about Disneyland as an adult versus a kid? Because when I went for the few hours that I went, I was a kid. I'm not anymore. So what needs to be different? I've never been to California Adventure because it didn't exist when I was there. Mm-hmm. So I know almost nothing about that. So if you have any tips about California Adventure, that'd be great. And I don't really like roller coasters. So I know, for example, I will not be doing Splash Mountain or whatever the one that used to be called Tower of Terror that I think is Guardians of the Galaxy now, where it just drops you straight down. Yeah, I'm not doing that. But are there other things that I either should avoid or that you might think I would want to avoid, but are actually I would still enjoy?
Mm-hmm. Those are great questions. So if you have any thoughts on any of that, email us right now as you're listening to this. I mean, you could still send it later. It just won't be a part of that episode then. So
right.
We would love if you could send it immediately.
That would be great. And I mean, I will be going in February. So it's not like I can't still benefit from your tip, but we can't podcast about it if you don't send it today. So you should just send it right now.
Give us content.
Or let's just say hypothetically that you're driving right now and you don't really want to pull over to do that. You know what you could do? What could they do? You could use all your amazing hands-free device and you could call us and leave us a voicemail with your tip. Isn't that amazing?
Ooh, fancy.
That's right. You would just have to tell your car to dial 406-763-8699. And if that's hard for you to remember, one way that's easier to remember, it's 406-POD-TIMWE.
There you go. And if your voice sounds anything like my voice, let's try this. Hey Siri, call 406-763-8699.
Or we could also do the other one.
Let's try that.
Oh, of course, my phone's going to take it if I do this if I'm not careful. Okay, Google. Call 406-763-8699. You're welcome, listeners.
If that works for any of you, do not chicken out and hang up the call. You better leave us a voice message.
Yes, please. And you probably need to pause this, otherwise we're going to be in the background of your message, which could also be weird. And with that, please go ahead and rate and review us. And tell us how much you love that we just made your assistant call us. Because that's your favorite, right?
They love us.
They do.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the use of her artwork. You can check out more of her artwork at Beth Is Something. She did a lot of really cool stuff for Christmas, for commissions for people of dog artwork. So you should look at that. Also, thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can check out more of Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
That's all we got for our first episode of 2020. But hopefully we've got a great year of travel ahead, both actual travel and also vicarious travel. But until then, please remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and lightly love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here want them to be